Hello, welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood, and we had a topic submitted by Political Junkie at the Patreon. Of course, you go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood. The submitted article level is all full because I can only take so many. But this topic was submitted by Political Junkie, and this is what his email was. I want to know your thoughts on the possible effects of fluoride on the pineal gland, as well as the harmful aluminum and glyphosate from giants like Monsanto that are now prevalent in society, with cheap metals from China, vaccines, and genetically engineered crops, as well as the foods made from genetically engineered crops. Is the USDA really certifying things organic righteously? Could autism and other neurological diseases be linked to these? So he sent 2 articles on this. I want to address the vaccine thing first. Me personally, I do not think vaccines are causing autism. I don't think that's correct. And telling people to not get vaccinations, that's been a harmful thing. Then they have a measles outbreak and stuff like that. So that's just my opinion on that. I'm not a doctor or scientist. But what is causing the rise of autism? It could be any number of things. And again, not a doctor, not a scientist, don't know. But these articles are interesting. There's one that was submitted from the healthnutnews.com, aluminum, fluoride, and glyphosate, a toxic trifecta implicated in autism and Alzheimer's disease research. So, is there stuff being contaminated in our food and water supply that is causing any number of things? Yeah. Any number of ailments, any number of rise in things? Of course. There's no 2 ways about it. I try to be as healthy as I can. I've watched documentaries like Forks Over Knives, and there's some other docs. I'm just blanking on the names. There's one about the sugar industry and all that stuff. So this is a valid subject to cover. And I'm going to just read these submissions and then kind of give, my thoughts on them, whether I agree or not. But overall, it's a good conversation and good discussion to have, because as we talk a lot about on this show, the corporate state has overtaken everything. The food supply, water supply is also one of them, which is why it's scary. And food manufacturers, to go to the question of, is the organic label accurate? I know that companies have been trying to weaken that label and weaken that authority to just include all these other things that should not be included under the organic food label. Organic food should mean that it has no pesticides. It's not any of that stuff. So let me just read this one article from the Health Nut News. Aluminum is known as a neurotoxin, and according to Professor Christopher Exley of Kiel University, aluminum-containing products are likely fueling the rise in Alzheimer's disease. That's an interesting thing. I didn't know that. In an article published in the journal Frontiers in Neurology, he writes, "We are all accumulating a known neurotoxin in our brain from our conception to our death. The presence of aluminum in the human brain should be a red flag, alerting us all to the potential dangers of the aluminum age. How do we know that Alzheimer's disease is not the manifestation of chronic aluminum toxicity in humans?" That's very interesting. "People with aluminum toxicity display many of the same symptoms of those with dementia, Parkinson's, ADHD, autism, and other neurological diseases, and mounting evidence suggests aluminum may play a significant role in development of those and other diseases." And this article goes into all of the things that have aluminum in them. Foods such as baking powder, self-rising flour, salt, baby formula, coffee creamers, baked goods, processed foods, coloring and caking agents, drugs such as antacids, analgesics, antidiarrheas, and others, additives such as magnesium stearate. Vaccines including hepatitis A and B, HIP, DTP, diphtheria, tetanus, pneumococcal vaccine, the HPV vaccine, and others, many of which also known contain glyphosate. Yeah, again, all right, I'm not going to just flat out say that I agree or disagree with this, but the direct link of vaccines to autism, I think that has been that vaccines are causing autism, I think that has been debunked by people in the medical and science community. That's my opinion. And when people stop vaccinating as a result of that, and then diseases start going up that were cured, that tells me that there's a problem in that. Is there something causing a rise in autism and Alzheimer's? Probably. And should we find out what that is? Yes. Yes, we should. I know Robert Kennedy is a big anti-vaccination guy, and he's done a lot of good stuff for the environment. I have too many friends with kids who have talked to too many pediatricians, and they're just like, no, we still need vaccinations. But let me put you in this statistic. According to the CDC, the average adult in the U.S. consumes about 7 to 9 milligrams of aluminum per day in food, plus a lesser amount from air and water. Approximately 1% of the aluminum you ingest orally gets absorbed into your body. The rest is moved out by your digestive tract, providing it's functioning at its optimum. The remaining aluminum is then deposited not only in brain tissue, but also in your nerves, bone, liver, heart, spleen, and muscle. 1% may sound like a tiny amount. Your overall toxic load will depend on the total amount of toxins you're exposed to over time. Your diet and digestive health, as well as ongoing toxic exposures, will also determine how much your body is actually able to eliminate and how much buildups in that body. Then they go into the Alzheimer's thing in the story. One published case study found high levels of aluminum in the brain of a man who was exposed to aluminum at work for 8 years. He later died from Alzheimer's disease. According to the authors, it's the first case showing a direct link between Alzheimer's disease and elevated brain aluminum following occupational exposure. Another study suggests the aluminum from food and drinking water may be contributing to rising Alzheimer's rates, noting that in recent years, interest in the potential role of metals in the pathogenesis of Alzheimer's disease has grown considerably. In particular, aluminum neurotoxicity was suggested after its discovery in the senile plaques and neurofibrillary tangles that represent the principal neuropathological hallmarks of AD. All is omnipresent in everyday life and can enter the human body from several sources, most notably from drinking water and food consumption. Other elements present in drinking water, such as fluoride, copper, zinc, and iron, should also have an effect on cognitive impairment or modify any AI neurotoxicity. The article also goes into how pesticides can wreak havoc on brain function, which I don't doubt that at all. They've done studies where farmers exposed to insecticides had a 90% increased risk of depression compared to those who didn't use them. Exposure to fumigants increased the risk of depression by 80%. Good Lord. People exposed to pesticides are also more likely to have Parkinson's disease. I want to hear more research on this because it's one of the things that one of the reasons I try to be healthy and try to eat organic and all this other stuff is I don't trust these corporations. I don't trust the FDA. I don't trust the EPA. I don't trust the USDA to monitor this stuff. But then ultimately you have to kind of do the best job that you can and hope that your food is as healthy as you can be. I think, I read that trying to have at least 50% of every meal be raw, meaning a salad, fruit, whatever, really helps with that. And I also drink a lot of water to try to get it out. So it's a good thing to bring up. And the thing on, there's the fluoridealert.org, which is the fluoride alert, it's the fluoride action network, basically talks about how fluoride can get in the pineal gland, and the pineal gland has the highest levels of fluoride in the body, and how it's affected puberty and all this other stuff. And this article, and I'll put the link in this, has a bunch of references that you could go towards. Now, I know this kind of stuff gets sort of frustrating in the sense that what do you know, what do you believe? And Political Junkie, thank you for just even saying, hey Graham, what do you think, and just asking the question. And again, as I've said, I'm no scientist. So, and a lot of people I'm sure are going to have comments saying, well, I think this and vaccines are bad or whatever. And, you know, that's great. If you want to do that research, that's what I hope you're going to do, is do as much research as you can before making a decision. I think too often, you know, people say, oh, there's a new study, this is bad for you, or this is good. Like a bunch of people were like, oh, soy is bad for you. All of a sudden we can't have soy anymore. And I'm like, well, one of those studies was put out by the American Dairy Association. So soy milk was cutting into their profit margin, so they made a study saying it's bad. Now maybe soy is, but I'm just saying, and I just would hear people would just tell me that. Just this here, oh, don't have soy. I was at a Jamba Juice a couple years ago, and I was like, can you just put soy protein powder in there instead of whey? Well, and then she gives me this thing, it's soy's bad for you, and I was just like, where? Show me the study. Show it to me. And she had just heard it. So I also know that we're all busy in all of our lives, and we can't sit there. I was just having a conversation today with a friend of mine. He's like, man, he runs a comic book store, and he's like, I try to stay informed, but I'm busy all day, and I've got a kid, and then I got to spend another couple hours researching and everything. It used to be you just watched the news and you trusted the news, and that's where you got your information from. And it goes, now it's hard to do that. So I like these questions. I like things being proposed. I like stuff that maybe you're sending me information that I don't know that much on, and maybe I'm not sure what my opinion is, and maybe my opinion will change, which is a good thing. And I also just like the open discussion, and maybe this video doesn't come to any sort of concrete resolution on a subject. It's just opening the door to a larger discussion on this, and maybe there's more research. And if you guys have more facts and information and research, put links in the comments below, and we can talk about it. And I thank you, Political Junkie, for bringing this to my attention and putting it out there. It's an interesting thing to discuss. So thanks for supporting the show, guys.